Lois Lane is the all-new Superwoman, but how did she gain these amazing new abilities? Well, let's hop into the pages of Superwoman Special issue number 1 and find out together, shall we? So then, as we join the book, Lois Lane, still very much the Daily Planet's editor, is hard at work pounding out a new story, only this is a different type of story than she's used to. This is her own true life story, and believe it or not, she's struggling to tell it. And why not? Up until recently, Lois had a pretty good grasp on who she was, but now her life has been completely thrown for a loop, what with her gaining brand new superpowers. Luckily, Lois ends up finding some very sympathetic ears in the form of Kara and Lana, who invite her out for a drink at Bibbo's. When she says she's too busy, they completely turn the question around on her and say, okay, you want to come fight crime with us? Which is exactly what they do. Also, if you're a continuity junkie, you'll probably enjoy knowing that this story actually takes place before, during, and slightly after the events of the Phantom Zone story that's going on in Action Comics right now. Our heroic trio fights some crime before eventually stopping over in France to visit a cafe that Lois is a fan of. Normally, if she wanted coffee from here, Superman would need to run it over during his short downtime. In a very fun bit of dialogue and a great use of continuity, Lois says to Lana, hey, are you mad that I'm running around with the Superwoman moniker? I know you were using it, only for Lana to say, it's no big deal, I'll be Superwoman Red, you'll be Superwoman Blue, there can be like 12 Green Lanterns, why can't there be 2 Superwomen? Which honestly, thank you comic, because that's the way I have always felt about having multiple legacy heroes at once. Lois opens up to her friends about her writer's block. Apparently it's been happening a lot recently. Used to be back in the day when Lois had a really strong feeling she'd write a story about it. She'd pitch the idea to Perry and the two would talk it out, and Lois would end up having a real sympathetic sounding board. Sadly, Perry's not around anymore, what with running for mayor, and because of that, Supergirl and Superwoman decide to offer their own insight into Lois's recent predicament, and for that we end up flashing back as Lois explains during the events of Absolute Power when Amanda Waller had used an army of Amazo robots to depower the entirety of the superhero community. She helped fight back by commandeering a special battle armor from LexCorp, one that Luthor himself doesn't even remember what exactly he built it for, what with him coming down with a bad case of amnesia. The suit was somehow connected to the Amazos, and when Lois tried to make it to Gamora for the big final push against Waller and her forces, the suit ended up completely malfunctioning right around the same time the Amazo robots got shut off. Lois fell to what she thought would be her death, but in reality she ended up awakening, right where her and Clark usually sneak away for some private time at the Daily Planet's rooftop. In fact, Jimmy and Banshee are also using the rooftop for the same reasons. At first, Lois assumes that Superman must have swooped on in and saved her the same way he always did, but no, that's not the case this time, not at all. Then she assumes that the suit must have had some sort of failsafe implanted in it to rescue the pilot in case of disaster. It's only when she ends up lifting an entire couch with one arm while trying to find her lucky red pen does Lois realize that she has actually been imbued with amazing Superman-level powers, and to better understand them, she decides to go to SuperCorp and Mercy Graves. At first, the other superwomen are actually a little offended that Lois would go to Mercy, a former villain, for help instead of them, but honestly, in Lois's head, it makes sense. Mercy has done so much to try and redeem herself following the birth of SuperCorp, and it seems that her and Lena are hard at work on a bunch of brand new projects. Surprisingly, though, they don't have any answers about Lois's brand new powers. In fact, as far as they put it, the super armor that Lex had built is still very much a mystery to them, and now because the suit is missing and assumed destroyed, there's very little they can do. Mercy does, however, tell Lois to try and lay low and not overtax these brand new abilities until they have a better understanding of what they are and where they come from. Of course, in classic super family fashion, when Lois walks home, she ends up stumbling upon the poor brand new police chief Krakoa, who again we still know very little about despite him having a super cool new design, getting shot at by a group of heavily armed bank robbers. Lois swoops on in and manages to save the day, and while she is incredibly powerful and invulnerable, she is sadly not faster than a speeding bullet, meaning that yes, indeed, her powers do have limits, and this is the sort of thing she's going to have to research fuller if she wants to become a full-time superhero like her husband. And speaking of Clark, it's at that moment he ends up returning from his Phantom Zone adventure over in Mark Waid's weekly Action Comics. Lois has a whole big reveal planned for him, where in a fun bit of poetic irony, she decides to don a pair of nerd glasses like Clark's before eventually taking them off and revealing her costume under her clothes a la Christopher Reeves. The best bit by far, though, has to be Clark's real understated reaction to learning that that his wife is now a superwoman. Oh really, Lois, you have superpowers like mine now? Neat. Superman does, however, take Lois to the Watchtower so Mr. Terrific and the Atoms can run some tests. They do manage to gain a better grasp on the situation, saying that these brand new Superman-level powers are probably tied to the fallout of absolute power as an event. A bunch of heroes had their powers switched, some lost them altogether. And Lois is probably in the same boat as them. Of course, they also have to theorize if these powers are permanent or not. Could she burn through them with enough use, or should she sit on them in case she might need them one day? Lois, always the forward and always the forceful type, decides that she wants to keep these powers and that she couldn't live with herself if she didn't use them to their absolute fullest. It's because of that Superman devotes time to training her in the art of superdom, and well, she ends up taking to it like a fish to water. I especially like this little bit here down in the right-hand corner where she flies through rings. Definitely reminds me of that infamous Superman N64 game. Eventually, Lois ends up getting so good at using her powers, she joins Superman and the rest of the Super family in the field to deal with a whole new army of brimstones running roughshod over Metropolis. Even John, her son, is absolutely shocked to see her having powers, him having missed a whole conversation with his parents apparently. It's with the story officially told, Lois ends up circling back to the very beginning of the issue, only now she is actually able to put pen to paper and write her full story, having a better understanding of her abilities and where she now exists in this grander superhero world. Though in an interesting little flourish, we as the reader never actually do end up seeing what Lois wrote about herself, only that she was able to overcome her writer's block since becoming editor. Oh, but believe it or not, we're not done yet, because this is a special issue and it comes packing with it not one but two pretty substantial epilogues. First, we see that Mercy Graves was actually lying to Lois earlier. The suit in question wasn't lost or destroyed, Mercy always had it in her care. Furthermore, Mercy knows exactly why Lex built it. It was to be a deep space exploration suit. Though why Mercy, and by extension Lena, would want to keep this secret perhaps implies that Mercy isn't nearly as reformed as Lois might have wanted to believe. After that, we once again join on up with the two Atoms, who come to one hell of a scientific theory, and that is that if Lois has brand new Superman-level powers, they must have come from somewhere. But wait, all the heroes in the Superman family have their amazing abilities, right? That is, of course, unless Lois didn't get her powers from a hero. Maybe she got them from an evil Kryptonian like, oh, I don't know, General Zod. And one would assume once Zod figures all of that out, he's going to be royally pissed and looking for some major revenge on the House of L. It's on that note right there the comic comes to a close, everybody. And so that was Superwoman Special issue number 1, everybody, and I gotta say, this was one hell of an enjoyable one-shot. Joshua Williamson gets all the credit in the world for writing a really good Superman over in his main series, and while it's certainly deserved, an issue like this really stands to show that he also writes an excellent Lois, too. This issue was a really fascinating deep dive into her character. We really learn a lot about her mental state right now. She loves being the editor of the Daily Planet, yet at the same time she worries that she's losing her edge as a writer, you know, the thing that brought her to the dance, the thing that defines her. Redefinition is also a major theme of this story too, as Lois is a mother, a wife, a writer, an editor, and now for the first time ever, a real deal superhero like her husband. It's all great material that I thoroughly enjoyed getting a chance to chew on, and it's something I'm sure I'm going to enjoy too as we continue to explore this story over in the main Superman book. In fact, Williamson basically ends up pointing to the stands and says, hey, I also have a great Zod story in mind too, get ready for that. Overall, I would end up giving this one a very positive 9 out of 10. Geez, between this and the ultimate one-year in story from this week, this has been an excellent time for special one-shots. Hey there everyone, it's your old pal Cape Joel again, thanking you so much for watching to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, why not check out my Amazon link down in the description. Yes, that's right, the Cape Joel channel officially has its own Amazon storefront now. You can pick up a comic or anything else for that matter, and if you did, you'd really be helping me in the channel. So with that out of the way everyone, I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.